Next speaker is Vít Novotný. We talk about Markdown 3, what's new and what's next.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My name is Vít Novotný, and I have traveled here from the neighboring country of the Czech Republic to celebrate with you the third major version of the Markdown package for TUG. Whenever I'm asked to explain the Markdown package, I find it useful to focus on the different audiences for who the package is intended. The first and most important audience are the authors. During my undergraduate, graduate, and PhD studies of computer science, I used LaTeX for anything and everything, from note-taking, homework assignments, presentation slides, to short books, journal articles, and ultimately my thesis. However, only the simplest of texts are written in one go. For most texts, the first draft will need to be edited, reread, rethought, restructured, often multiple times, before it is ready for general consumption. Over the years, I have discovered, and others have also remarked, that LaTeX is perhaps easy to write, but difficult to reread and think about. There is a certain bravado, in my experience, about this subject in the academia, where the authors can be proud about their ability to read LaTeX, but in my experience, a lot of effort is wasted on the extra cognitive load of reading the code, tinkering with the code, instead of focusing on what should be the main focus, which is the text itself. In my graduate years, I started teaching a university course about digital document production, a broad and fascinating subject, as I think we can all agree. And I fell in love with lightweight markup languages, which use punctuation to denote structure and which are easy to both read and write. Markdown was a prominent lightweight markup language, widely used for blogging, instant messaging, online discussion forums, question answering forums, and software documentation. Due to my interest in Markdown, as well as my other interests in LaTeX, compiler design, and too much free time on my hands, I proposed to my university a project that would allow authors to use Markdown instead of LaTeX in their writing. And the project was greenlit, and I received a grant, which allowed me to work on the Markdown package for TUG alongside my studies. Since then, 8 years have passed, and the Markdown package has matured to the point where authors can confidently, hopefully, use Markdown to write complex texts containing tables, figures, lists, footnotes, among other things, and produce beautiful documents using TUG. In this presentation, authors will learn about new types of elements that they can use in their writing. Even in LaTeX, where many authors will switch between the two roles of an author and a programmer, there is often a division of labor, where a publisher will hire a TUG expert to prepare a template according to a design spec, and this template is then used by authors to produce documents for the publisher. For the expert, the Markdown package for TUG is an important tool in their belt, which increases their value on the job market. This is because the Markdown package was designed as a white box, which allows all aspects of Markdown text to be defined in terms of TUG macros, down to the individual elements, such as headings, hyperlinks, or footnotes. Therefore, the expert can produce a template and then add extra code that will make sure that the Markdown text produces output that is consistent with the template. Furthermore, the Markdown package for TUG supports not just LaTeX, but also plain text, context, and other formats. This further increases the value of learning the Markdown package for TUG as a common framework, similarly to TIG, Expl3, and other frameworks which are available across different TUG formats. In this presentation, the TUG experts will learn how they can style Markdown elements in different TUG formats. Besides authors and TUG experts, there are also software developers who contribute to free open source software projects, such as the Markdown package, to educate and challenge themselves, to collect bounties on outstanding issues, and to take part in the governance and maintenance of the projects. For the developers, the Markdown package for TUG presents a unique challenge, a heterogeneous and layered code base in more than 6 different programming languages that contains lessons in systems architecture, compiler design, and digital typography with multiple interfaces and with bindings to external tools such as Pandoc, GraphViz, and others. The developers can either focus on one of the many different modules that suit their narrow interests, or they can combine their skills and tackle the more difficult challenges that affect a larger part of the heterogeneous whole that is the Markdown package. In this presentation, the developers will learn about the implementation details of the Markdown package and its governance. Furthermore, they will also learn how they can develop syntax extensions that add support for new Markdown elements required by authors and publishers. In the first part of my presentation, I will focus on the new features of the Markdown package that have been developed in the past 2 years. These include the implementation of the common mark standard, which will make Markdown documents written for the Markdown package easier to export to different Markdown processors. Then the Markdown elements supported by the Markdown package. Then the external bindings and new TUG formats that we now support. The new TUG and Lua packages that have been separated from the Markdown package because they are generally useful even outside the Markdown package, and also the current governance of the Markdown package. Then in the second part of my presentation, I will focus on the features of the Markdown package for TUG. Not features, on the future of the Markdown package for TUG. Here, I will first focus on the roadmap towards a stable release of version 3.0 of the Markdown package in the next few months. And then I will focus on the planned features and governance past version 3.0. Because, yeah. So first, let's look at some of the new features of the Markdown package, which you can use today. The Markdown language was developed in 2004 by John Gruber as a Perl program that would convert Markdown text to HTML websites. And this program was accompanied by a free-form text description of the language. As the language became more popular, different implementations, including the Markdown package for TUG, were developed, which behaved differently in some corner cases that were not covered by Gruber's description, and that produced confusing results in the original Perl implementation. In order to prevent further fragmentation and to improve interoperability, a standardization effort led by Jeff Atwood and John McFarlane produced the common mark standard, which disambiguates the Markdown language. In the bachelor's thesis, my student Andrej Genčur from the Masaryk University in Czech Republic implemented the common mark standard to the Markdown package. The implementation is available in the alpha release of Markdown 3.0, which is available for download in the digital repository of the Markdown package. Not on C10 yet, more on that later. This change allows authors to produce Markdown text that can be easily used across different common mark implementations or converted to other dialects of Markdown, as well as other markup languages that may be required by the publisher. Although common mark provides a strong foundation for writing documents in Markdown, many useful elements, such as tables, footnotes, and citations, are not included. Therefore, the Markdown package for TUG provides syntax extensions that allow the authors to write these elements in their text. Whereas Markdown can be used to write the body text of a document, it is ill-suited for denoting structured metadata, such as the title, the authors, or the abstract of a document. YAML, on the other hand, is a data serialization format that is a superset of JSON, and that provides a way to denote document metadata that is easy to both read and write. Several implementations of Markdown, including the Markdown package, provide support for mixing Markdown with YAML, which allows authors to combine documents, document metadata, and document text in a single source file. Tech experts can define the meaning of the different YAML keys, such as title, authors, and here, in the example here, which allows publishers to specify which metadata should be provided by the authors and how they should be formatted in the produced document. In heavyweight markup languages, such as XML, authors can attach attributes to elements to denote additional information. For example, section identifiers for cross-references, classes that provide different formatting for the same Markdown element or for the same XML element, or key values that specify the dimensions of a figure. Several implementations of Markdown, including the Markdown package, allow authors to attach attributes to elements. Tech experts can define the formatting of different attributes based, again, on the requirements of the publisher and also the authors. In complex documents, authors will often write 90% of the text in Markdown, but they will need to use tech for the remaining 10%, which include complex tables, figures, and math. Therefore, the Markdown package has always allowed authors to end a block of Markdown text at any point and switch back to tech. Furthermore, to allow adjustments to hyphenation, spacing, and the typing of text macros inside a paragraph, the Markdown package has always provided the option to enable what we call the hybrid mode, which allows authors to freely combine tech with Markdown. However, enabling the hybrid mode alters the Markdown language, which makes Markdown documents less interoperable. Nevertheless, the sheer usefulness of the hybrid mode causes it to be enabled by default in many templates, which we think is a problem. In order to phase out the use of the hybrid mode, the Markdown package implements 3 syntax extensions that do not affect interoperability. The first one is the one you can see here. Authors can denote what we call raw code blocks and also raw spans that will be interpreted as tech code. Another option is to place large blocks of tech code into a separate file and include it in the Markdown document as an external resource. And for math, authors can also enable a syntax extension that allows them to freely type tech commands and other characters between $signs or backslash escaped characters. Several implementations of Markdown, including the Markdown package, also provide support for additional syntax extensions which allow authors to write the following elements in their document: task lists, emphatic line breaks, superscripts and subscripts, and strike-throughs. And for each of these elements, again, tech experts can define the formatting based on the requirements of the publisher. To make the Markdown package more broadly useful, support for new formats other than plain text, LaTeX, and context has recently been added. The new formats supported by the Markdown package are Tech4HT, which authors can use to produce websites instead of PDF documents for printing, and also OpTech, which is a minimalist format based on plain text, which still offers to the tech experts many of the bells and whistles of larger formats, such as built-in font selection, bibliography support, syntax highlighting in code listings, hyperlinks, and more. So if you'd like to try these, there are example files that you can just download and typeset. I have mentioned Pandoc several times. Pandoc is a document conversion tool that can convert between dozens of documents formats, including various formats of text. However, Pandoc produces raw text code, which makes it difficult to alter the appearance of individual elements of the text without hand editing the output of Pandoc. In their bachelor's thesis, my student Dominic Rehaak has developed a binding between the Markdown package and Pandoc, and this binding allows authors to type their documents in a text processor, such as Microsoft Word, and then typeset their documents through the Markdown package as though they were written in Markdown to begin with, and benefit from the existing templates for the Markdown package. The Markdown package implements many useful functions, and some of these functions are general enough that they can be separated from the Markdown package and provided as a standalone package to the community. As we have already discussed, the Markdown package allows authors to write document metadata using the Markdown package, the markup language of YAML. Previously, the parsing of YAML was provided by an external Lua library called TinyYAML, which was distributed as a part of the Markdown package. However, thanks to the contributor Zeping Lee, TinyYAML is now available as an independent library on C10. Secondly, although the Markdown package uses Lua under the hood, it works seamlessly with other tech engines such as PDF Tech and ZTech. And the ability to execute Lua code with any tech engine is now provided as a part of the LT3 Lua Bridge Expo 3 package, which is also available on C10. So 8 years ago, when I began the development of the Markdown package, I made all the decisions about this direction. Nowadays, a number of authors, tech experts, and developers participate in the development. And previously, all communication took place at GitHub, which favors developers, but is less welcoming to authors. And therefore, we have recently added rooms at the Discord and matrix.org instant messaging social platforms where authors, tech experts, and developers can discuss their issues as well as the future of the Markdown package. Next, let's briefly look at some of the features of the Markdown package that are planned for the near future. At the end of June, we have released the first public alpha of Markdown 3.0, which you can download at GitHub. We plan a stable release of Markdown 3.0 in September, and we plan to release on C10 before the release of TechLive 2024 to ensure that all versions of TechLive 2023, whenever you have taken the snapshot, still contain Markdown 2, which we think is the responsible and sane thing to do, because the changes between Markdown 2 and 3 are substantial. More on that later. So the first reason why the current release of Markdown 3.0 is marked as an alpha release is due to a number of open issues. Namely, the implementation of Common Mark has introduced memory leaks. These have been hotfixed in the alpha, but will need a proper fix before the stable release. Furthermore, the implementation of Common Mark has increased the number of unit tests 6 times, which has caused performance issues with our continuous integration service. In the alpha, we have temporarily reduced the number of tech engines that are automatically tested, but this may have caused us to miss regressions in other tech engines. Therefore, we will need to improve the speed of unit tests, restore the full testing, and then see if any regressions have been introduced in the meantime before the stable release. And lastly, the implementation of attributes in the Markdown package is slightly incompatible with other implementations, such as Pandoc, which we will also fix before the stable release in the next 2 months. Besides open issues, the other reason why the current release of Markdown 3.0 is an alpha release is due to a number of planned features that have not yet been implemented. The first of these features is a syntax extension that would allow authors to write attributes next to not only figures, but also tables, which we think will be quite useful to authors who need to reference their tables from the text. The other feature are what we call tech-like rich paragraphs. As you may recall, the language of Markdown was originally developed as a preprocessor for writing websites in HTML, and in HTML, block-level elements such as lists always end a paragraph. However, a typographer may use a list as a way to typeset a series of items inside a sentence, and clearly such a list should not end a paragraph. And in most text formats, such as LaTeX, you can write such a list by omitting a blank line after the list. Our syntax extension will empower authors to do the same in Markdown. By omitting a blank line, the authors can indicate that the end of a block-level element, such as list, should not enter the current paragraph, similarly to tech. So if you're going to try the alpha release of Markdown 3, which we encourage, and you are a long-time user of Markdown 2, you should be aware that a number of deprecated features have been removed in Markdown 3. Namely, we have removed the hard line breaks option, which has previously caused all line breaks in Markdown source to produce a line break in the output, which can be useful, for example, when typesetting poetry. In Markdown 3, however, all line breaks in Markdown text produce a soft line break tech macro, which produces no visible output by default, but which can be redefined by a tech expert to produce, for example, a line break or something else entirely in the output. Furthermore, we have renamed a number of elements to more clearly indicate their semantics rather than how they are commonly formatted. These include footnotes, which have been renamed just to notes, and horizontal lines, which have been renamed to thematic breaks. If you have an existing template for Markdown 2.0, which uses some of the deprecated features, you can either use TechLive 2023 and earlier with your template, or you can distribute Markdown 2 together with your template, and you can use TechLive 2024 and later. Or you can hire a tech expert who will be happy to update your template from Markdown 2 to Markdown 3, I'm sure. So after the stable release of Markdown 3, we have a couple more features already in the plans. The authors can look forward to new syntax extensions that will allow them to automatically generate section identifiers for cross-references. Currently, authors can always write multiple paragraphs of text and use block-level elements such as lists and figures. However, this may be undesirable in some situations. For example, a tech expert may create a template that will use a Markdown document provided by the author to generate the head and foot of a document. And here, it is desirable that the author can only write inline text. Therefore, we are planning an option to control the content level allowed in Markdown text. Furthermore, we are planning to add a mark inline tech command that would allow authors who still prefer tech to use inline Markdown text just here and there in the middle of a paragraph to get familiar with the syntax and perhaps to even improve the readability of their document. As previously mentioned, the Markdown package already supports the optech format. However, this support is currently limited, all inside an example document, in addition to the text which is typeset in the example document. And in the future, we would like to move the optech implementation into a separate module, which the authors and tech expert can just import from their documents. I have also mentioned that my student Dominic Rehag has developed a binding between the Markdown package and Pandoc, which makes it possible to typeset a dozen of document formats through the Markdown package. However, the Markdown, the implementation is just a proof of concept in Lua, and in the future, we would like to add a proper implementation in Haskell directly into the code base of Pandoc, which I have already discussed preliminarily with the lead developer of Pandoc, John McFarlane, as well as others. And yet another thing, although it is best to use a template developed by a tech expert, the Markdown package provides default formatting definitions for most elements, which the authors can use as a starting point. However, these default definitions are often insufficient, and they also clutter up the code base of the Markdown package. Currently, tech experts can also use a concept of theme when developing a template for the Markdown package in LaTeX. And in the future, we are planning to bring the concept of themes to all the supported formats in a way that will allow a single theme to have multiple formatting definitions for different tech formats. And using this new tech, we are planning to create a single default theme that would encompass all the default formatting definitions of the Markdown package. And this theme would then be maintained separately from the Markdown package, so which would allow for a more serious implementation than what we have now, which is a placeholder in absence of a proper template. As previously mentioned, we now use instant messaging social platforms to discuss the future of the Markdown package. However, a lot of tech-related discussions take place at mailing lists, and therefore in the future we would like to create a mailing list for the Markdown package. And if the Markdown package and its user base grows further, we will need to explore some options for more decentralized governance, so that it's not just social platforms and me, but some voting and so on, so that the features are decided in a more transparent way. So in conclusion, in this talk, we have discussed the new and planned features of the Markdown package for tech from the viewpoint of three stakeholders: authors, tech experts, and developers. In the words of Petr Sojka and John Lennon, I would like to say, please, all we are saying is give Markdown a chance. And I hope that you have found the talk interesting, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have either now or during the coffee break or in the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you planning to get a conversion from an MD file to a .tex file?
What kind of file? .tex file.
You write a .md file for Markdown, and you can convert it to a printed version using tex. But can you convert it to a tex file?
Yes, the Markdown package provides a Lua command line interface, which you can use to take a Markdown file and convert it to this intermediate representation in tex macros. And you can then use it as you like.
Okay. Are there any questions? We have one here.
To be honest, I'm a bit skeptical. Do we really need yet another markup language? LaTeX is a well-defined language already, but some people say, oh, that's far too complicated for me. I need a simpler one. But the more features you add to your markup language, the smaller this advantage gets. And when you, for instance, two number signs, are they really more readable than a section command call, for instance? And a host of problems. The more special characters you define, the more nasty surprises the users will get with old documents, because suddenly a special character has a special meaning rather than to be represented in verbatim mode. So I see a lot of problems with just another markup language, more problems than advantages. So right. It's just a more remark than a question.
Right. I'm not sure what the question exactly was. I will address some of the points that you raised. So in LaTeX, there is even a concept of a document markup language, which LaTeX 2E is one possible markup language, but the LaTeX project assumes that there will be several markup languages which the authors can use and which the backend will be sort of independent on, right? So it will all be LaTeX, but there will be different markup languages that the authors can use. So like the idea of adding another markup language is part of the ethos, I think, of the LaTeX project. You also mentioned special characters, which may cause trouble. When we're typesetting the Markdown text, we switch to a special getCode regime, so that should not be a problem. But we switch back whenever you have this raw tech block which you're using, where you're using your own tech macro. So this should not cause any trouble for you as the user.
Any other question?
Not really a question, but just a comment/offer. You have a matrix channel. I would be happy to take that under the TUG matrix space umbrella, so you can just contact me after the session.
Okay, thanks.
Any other question? So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you've added tables and the YAML support, you're quite close to GitHub flavored Markdown, which many people know from GitHub pages and places. I mean, would you have definite, or are you envisaging support for specific flavors of Markdown apart from common mark? So GitHub pages in particular is quite common.
Oh, so the question is whether we would be open to supporting other flavors of Markdown other than
Yeah, I
common
mean,
mark?
the table support is obviously very close to the GitHub table extension, and they also have YAML at the top. So you're already, I guess, pretty close to GitHub.
Right, so I'm not sure I've caught the entire question, but just to answer the point about common mark, no, we are currently only, like the plan is to support common mark, and if you need to supply documents in the different markup format, including different dialects of Markdown, you first convert to common mark. Yeah, so that's the plan.
Okay. Oh.
Did you prepare your slides with Markdown or with something else?
No, I'll confess that the slides were produced in Google Slides.
Okay, after this confession, we can thank again our speaker.